Hello, I'm Bruce Harris.
Hi, I'm Kasia Gołębiewska.
Hi, I'm Miguel Mora, and welcome to Chex Play.
Welcome.
Welcome to Chex Play. Welcome to Chex Play.
Good to have you
welcome
back.
to Chex Play. That's corny. That was corny.
Let's
That was
do
corny.
it.
Well, we're back here in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And Casa, you are?
Poland. Now in Poland.
Great.
In a sunny Poland.
What part of
Surprisingly.
Poland? What part of Poland, though?
Warsaw.
You in Warsaw?
In Warsaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Warsaw. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's
weather
good,
is
it's
good there, Kasia?
Amazing, better than in Spain. Well,
Good,
in
good,
Spain.
Hey, well, listen, it's funny. I was, I didn't take a swim today, but I had a couple of calls from our guest today. He's actually in Battle Creek, Michigan, and it's getting to be springtime weather there back in the United States, the old USA. Springtime, I think he said it was like in 60 degrees or so, around 60 yesterday.
Mhm.
It's kind of early right now. His name is Lance Allen. He'll be with us later, but just the other day, by the way, we've been getting text messages from folks about the podcast, and we've had some interesting guests on here. In fact, we recently had Joe Gimo, which was a really interesting and fun interview that we did. And who was it last week? Oh, Alan
Burek. Yeah, from Argentina. He came to us. He does a show, Saxe,
Yeah.
all over South America and the Caribbean.
Yeah, he's got I think on the 30th and 31st, they have their expo is going to be happening in Argentina, and that was very, very, very interesting, to say the least. I got a text message the other day from Andre from Singapore. Andre from Singapore. This is what he said. He says, "Which casino game has the lowest house edge?" In other words, house edge is basically what game does the casino have the most advantage on, or the lowest advantage on? Okay. If it's the lowest advantage, means the higher advantage for the customer, of course, obviously.
Mhm.
So which one do you think it is, Miguel?
Of the traditional games, if I go to the traditional games, would be blackjack to me.
Actually, single deck blackjack
Yes.
has about a 1.5%, but
1.5.
But the thing is, you probably can't find a single deck blackjack game that the house is not dealing 6 to 5 payout on blackjack. Plus, they cut off half a deck. So that's a great question, Andre. I hope that answered your question. And you know what? There's a great website that most of us use. And listen, Miguel has a great network that he uses, obviously. But one of the biggest tools that I use is a website called Wizard of Odds. That's ODDS, Wizard of Odds, and that's by Michael Shackelford. But he's a brilliant mathematician, has an excellent website. If there's anything you ever want to see or see any analytics on any casino games, not just if you're a casino professional, but even if you're a player, that's a great website to go to, Wizard of Odds. So,
But Bruce, so once you are placing a game in a casino and deciding which games and how many games of certain type you will place in a casino, definitely you look at this percentage, right?
Correct. In certain particular jurisdictions and areas, like for instance, if you go to South America, in South America, roulette is the game of choice.
Or England as well.
Casino and see 25 to 30 or 40 roulette tables in one casino, and only 5 to 10 blackjack tables. If you come to the U.S., you're going to see a proliferance of blackjack tables and dice tables more than roulette.
That's the same in the UK also.
The market, it's the market, but will determine what your product placing is going to be.
I work with a brilliant boss. I'm going to mention his name too. I'm going to tell him I'm giving him a shameless plug. His name is Paul Malo, and he's great with analytics. He has he put all these figures in the spreadsheet, but he uses macros. And then he put all of these figures in. I mean, it's of all of the players, and so it gives you which players or play what game and the whole floor plan. So you can do a great analysis. We call it the planets. because it's all by colors. You know, if it's purple, that means it's a good game. If it's getting closer to red, it's not so good. You know, and we can look at the areas. We can analyze the game type. We can analyze what shift that it's on, the time of day, the holidays, and so it will give you different colors depending on all these different circumstances that are in the analytics. But once again, a great website is Wizard of Odds, Michael Shackelford's, and there's another one, it's a book that I use also, and I think I have it around. Jim Kilby. Jim Kilby is I'm gonna move my computer is actually sitting on it. This one, it's a great book. This is a casino introduction to casino management, and there's a lot of great information in here. Just to give an example, race book and sports book operations, roulette, 3-card poker, chemin de fer, and baccarat.
Chemin de fer. Yeah.
Chemin de fer.
It's different. There's a difference between the two of them. Yeah.
Talks about slots. It talks about the summaries of scheduling systems, of different scheduling systems and things like that. And I said, I'm not going to use that word, things like that. It's going to be used for example. That's a great book that's written by Jim Kilby and Jim Fox. And he's a professor at the gaming professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. If you remember, Casa, you had a question when Henry Paisano was here about how do we measure our customers and the value of the customers. And we said that there was a formula that we used, the theoretical win. Remember? Well, someone else also asked, apparently we didn't give the full formula, but there's 4 factors in the house advantage, in theoretical win. And this is how you figure it out. If you multiply the house advantage times the decisions per hour times the average bet times how long you played, that will give you the theoretical win. And that theoretical win is used for an assortment of things. Miguel, right?
Yes, we use theoretical win to establish the value of a player comp-wise, and also to qualify the bankroll of the player. When you're talking qualified bankroll, you hear a lot of numbers sometimes in a casino. You say he's a $100,000 player, he's a $500,000 player. A lot of people believe that because a person walks in with that kind of money, they are a true player of that quality, and sometimes they're not. I mean, a guy could come in with $1 million, and if he doesn't give us 250,000 in theoretical at the end of the trip, which a trip is usually somewhere around 3 days, 4 nights, and gives you at least 4 hours of play at a minimum of 2% of his bankroll, he's not going to reach out those numbers unless he loses the whole bankroll, or what we call quick loss. If the person starts playing and he loses in a couple of hours, then he is a true player. He can't give you more Theo. He can't give you more Theo because he lost all his money.
It doesn't give you the time played element, so that Correct. Screws it screws up the
theoretical in a sense. But if you're looking to qualify a player and qualify his bankroll, if the person gives you 25% or 1/4 of his bankroll in theoretical during one trip, then the person qualifies. Otherwise, he's just somebody who shows up with a lot of money and want to impress his friends and say, I'm a big player.
Qualifies, what does it mean? Like, so what changes if a player is a qualified player? Like,
if he's a qualified player, you know he's the guy that you want. You want to invite him as much as possible. You want him to come back, and you're gonna do comp-wise. You're going to invite him. You're going to bring him in. You know what he likes. You know what kind of champagne he drinks. You will set up some excursions for the family.
Absolutely.
Like for instance, here in Punta Cana, we have the water park.
Cave diving. Las Terrenas, right?
Yeah, Las Terrenas. We got the dolphins that we can send the kids to spend the day at the aquarium with the dolphins. We can set up a boat.
So listen, today we have the gentleman has been in the industry for probably 40, just north of 40 years, recently retired. I worked with him in Atlantic City, New Jersey as well. Miguel did as well. He had a tremendous opportunity when the gaming industry was really growing outside of Nevada, New Jersey, and in the Midwest, such places like Indiana, California. And he also took the opportunity to venture into those areas to develop his career. So we're going to introduce this gentleman, and we're going to talk about a lot of different areas of his career, about how he transitioned from being a dealer into the position of a vice president of table games in the Michigan area. So we're going to welcome Mr. Lance Allen. Lance Allen is with us today.
There he is.
Hi, Lance.
Hello.
Hello, Lance.
Good afternoon, good morning. What's up, Bruce? How are you?
Good to see you, my friend. Good.
Love, peace, and soul.
Good to see you, everybody. How is Kasia? Where is she?
I'm
She's
in
right
Poland.
there.
I'm in Poland right now.
There you are. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very good. Thank you.
We started this about 4 hours earlier. We had some technical issues. So Lance, show everybody what you were doing.
He had cue cards.
I had to have my cue cards all set up.
We had, just so the folks know out there, we didn't have any sound with Lance, and he was so patient. And so the fog interrupted your bandwidth, and you didn't have a good signal. We couldn't hear you.
It was a mess.
What's happening in Battle Creek, my man, huh? Battle Creek, that's the home of Kellogg's Cornflakes, right?
Kellogg's Corn Flakes and Post cereal as well. Yes, that is
Really?
correct.
Are they competitors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. In my mind, have you ever been, any of you guys ever been to St. Louis?
I've been to
Oh,
St.
no,
Louis.
not St. Louis. I'm sorry. Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah.
Well,
That's
Louisville, that's the home of the Louisville Slugger, right? And at the factory, they have this huge
Look at the baseball bats.
120-foot bat. It's a real actual bat. So in my mind, Battle Creek, Michigan, is there like this huge 120-foot thing, a box of Kellogg's Cornflakes?
Kellogg's. Yeah.
No, nothing of that nature do we have as a monument or memento to the history of the city.
Have you been to the factory before?
I've not been in it, but I have been to them. They have actually a couple of plants here, a couple of different lines, as does Post, but not been inside them.
Okay, I got you.
Post and Kellogg's are probably one of the top 10 employers within the county. We do have a lot of industry within Calhoun County, but they're probably still within the top 10, I would have to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great.
In Casa, what we're talking about, are there Kellogg's Cornflakes in Poland and in Valencia, Spain? I'm sure.
Yes.
Kellogg's
Yes.
Cornflakes?
Yes.
So where Lance is, where he lives, and where the casino is located, where he was working, because now Lance is retired. All right, is the home base, home factory of headquarters
Yeah.
of Kellogg's
Okay.
Cornflakes.
Yeah. I know them. I like them. I eat them for my breakfast.
No, I think you're a Wheaties girl. You're a
We
Wheaties girl.
appreciate that.
Breakfast of champion.
No. So Lance, what's been going on, man? Tell us all about it, man. What's happening? How you feeling? You looking good?
I'm trying. I'm hanging in there. It's retirement has been it's been almost 2 months now, and just trying to get acclimated and get situated. It's kind of nice not having to get up every morning at a certain time. It's the nicest part about it is not having to punch a clock, I say. But believe it or not, I'm still just as busy as I was, when I actually had a day job.
Yeah. So now you are more busy than before.
Kasia, I really wonder how I got stuff done before, because even now, I still can't. There isn't enough time in the day to get everything done. They're just.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So everybody knows Lance was vice president of table games at Firekeepers Casino, hotel and casino in Battle Creek, Michigan. Lance and I probably, I don't know what year it was, but I think we first met the former Playboy Hotel and Casino turned into the Atlantis, and Lance was a supervisor. Lance used to come in wearing a tuxedo every day. See, look at this.
Yeah, they wore tuxes there. Yeah.
Look at this brother.
You were still the new guy getting broken in.
I wasn't a break-in.
Those were the good old days. I mean, in Atlantic City, I remember, when we started at the Golden Nugget, and then other places started opening, like Playboy, and then the Trump Plaza, Showboat, the Castle, and eventually the Taj Mahal, which was one of the last places to open up until then. A couple of decades passed by until a new place opened, and people were moving from place to place. That was the way to grow within the industry. You had to move. And it worked for some of us. It did work. Some of the people stay there because the people that work with us at the Golden Nugget Lands, many of them stayed there until the place closed down as the Atlantic. What was the name? What was the name that it finally had? The
Atlantic Club, wasn't it?
Atlantic Club. Yes, the Atlantic Club. And they were there for over 30 some years, many of them. But the people that wanted to grow in the business, they figure it out, and what you had to do was move on, go to a new place, from dealer to supervisor, and hopefully move from there to another place as a pit boss, and then grow within the industry. So
it was very difficult. I would say very difficult. It was difficult back then because you're absolutely right. Because in order to grow, you had to be able to make that sacrifice, and you had to move, as you said. You would go from one casino to the next, but at some point, you reach a plateau, and then in order to take that next step, you had to leave the city. As gaming expanded across the country, and the decision had to be made. Well, am I going to go to Iowa? Am I going to go to Illinois? Am I going to go to Indiana? Am I going to go to New Orleans? Where? And for the position.
But originally, there were only the two jurisdictions. It was only Nevada and New Jersey. So there was not that much movement. The movement was within the industry in your city or your state. Like for us, it was just Atlantic City. And people were rotating from place to place until back in the 90s when the Indian reservations started popping up in Iowa, and then California, then the Midwest. So all of that is what started the revolution for people to start moving. New Orleans was probably the biggest move for Atlantic City people because
actually, Miguel,
and
before that though, Miguel, sorry for cutting in, but actually remember Foxwoods opened up before that. That was a big move.
Yeah, it was a move, but it wasn't as massive. It wasn't as massive in people. It was in
Mississippi.
Foxwood was mostly executives. Like from pit bosses, shift managers, and a few people weren't as supervisors. But New Orleans, when New Orleans blew up and they were going to open the largest casino in the world.
Lance, what were you doing before you got into casino business, if I can ask? What was your career path? And what made you get into, what attracted you to the casino business?
I had, before I got into the business, I was actually in construction. I'd gotten out of school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Like, let's be honest, so many 21-year-olds, you don't know what you want to do at that point in time.
So I'm sorry, you're working in construction in South Jersey, or where are you from?
I was working in construction in South Jersey, and make a long story short, I had a appendectomy, which led to complications. So I spent a couple of weeks in the hospital because of that. And then I was recovering, and the doctor said, you can do anything you want once you heal up. Just don't ever let me catch you going back into construction again. He was just worried about the strength of my lower abdomen because of the procedures that he had to do. So I'm sitting home one Sunday, just trying to figure out, okay, what's my next step? My father said to me, he says, you ever think about being a dealer? Me, the smart ass that I was, I'm going, if I'm going to be a dealer, I'm going to go work for Playboy. My dad takes the Sunday paper, folds it in half again, and then drops it right in my lap. And there's a full page ad, Playboy Hotel and Casino, and all the fancy calligraphy, coming to Atlantic City. We're going to be doing hiring. He says, I guess you're to call tomorrow, aren't you? I just sat there with
absolutely.
like my bluff has been called. I'm like, gosh.
Hugh Hefner and everything, the girls, the bunnies, the tails. I remember when they were there. Well, they still had the bunnies when we were working there, and we would pull the tails off.
Girls didn't like that though. Girls
Yeah,
didn't like.
Picture yourself doing that today. You go to jail.
It was the early '80s, and it's well, look, let's date ourselves.
It was socially acceptable.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You know, and so I went to school, and we were supposed to open in for late 1980. And as with any construction project, you run into delays, and you know, we were trying to figure out what are we going to do in the meantime so we don't lose our skill sets because we'd already graduated school. So a couple of us decided that you know, we're going to go work someplace, and I took a couple auditions, and Resorts ended up hiring me. So I went to Resorts and worked for a couple of months before Playboy finally opened, which, if I remember correctly, was April of 1981.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Nugget opened, I believe it was in November of '80.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the Nugget opened, and Playboy was the next one right after that.
Remember, there was a tradition, well, not a tradition, but a method that we got to the place where we wanted to end up, because it really depended on the toke rate is where we wanted to go. Right?
Correct.
The
Money.
toke rate, Casas, so you know, we call tokes, that's the tips. And the tips were broken down. You had to share them in the pool. And by the way, Lance, you would go
between
crazy
the
here.
dealers.
Between the dealers. But
Yeah.
I was going to say, Lance, you would flip out here because the tips are divided by everybody, all departments here in the Dominican Republic.
All departments.
All
Well,
departments.
actually, within the casino.
within
we
the
had,
casino.
The casino cage, VIP,
Slots.
even the guys that changes the layout gets a piece of the action.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's mostly like that in Latin America. In South America, where I was, even my secretary was an executive secretary. She got a piece of the tokes. It was minimal. They dealt on percentages, but
Okay.
even them, they got it. Yes,
Yeah.
everybody. The guy that sweeps the floor, everybody gets a piece.
So Casa, so all the money goes into a big pool, and depending on the amount of hours, the total hours of all the staff, it gets divided by the hours, and it becomes an hourly rate. So we went by the hourly toke rate. That's where we wanted to go. So if I wanted to work at Caesars, who had the highest toke rate, I would go to Playboy and take an audition there, especially if I just got out of school. That was the smart guys did that. And I wasn't smart, but I found out from the smart guys, you know. But I would go to the Playboy because they were getting the good jobs and I wasn't. That's why I wanted to at the Playboy. Anyway, you go to a place where it's not as desirable, maybe you take an audition there to get the nerves off and to get the rust off and everything, to hone your skills. Then you go
It's
to
like
the
a
place.
dry run.
Yeah.
Dry run.
Then you go to
Yeah.
the place where you really want to go.
Yeah. I
That's a-
did it the other way. I went directly to the place where I wanted to work. I said, "This
Well,
is
you
the
were
place
working
I-"
already. You were working in places that weren't sanctioned.
Yeah. No, but in my thing, in my way though, it was different because
Miguel, tell
I
the
didn't
truth.
know I
Miguel-
didn't know the procedures. of
Miguel,
those places
you
and
were
all that.
you were a hoodlum, and you were working in those places where they had
Oh,
shotguns at the
worked in
doors and
places,
shit.
I worked in places where people wouldn't dare to go.
You know what? I
And
know.
places that I had
I
to
know.
jump out of a window and run.
I know him. That's what I'm saying.
Hey,
I'm sorry, Lance. I'm
not
sorry.
at all. Not at all.
I can't work with these guys, Lance. So you were a dice dealer.
Yes, so
Only dice, only craps.
originally I was only craps, and then I realized I needed other games in order to really, work my way up the ladder, because that's ultimately what I wanted to do. So then after craps, I went and took blackjack, and then baccarat, and then roulette, and as in with in New Jersey, you had to deal each game for a certain number of hours.
1,500 hours for craps.
1,500.
Then you had to get an affidavit from the casino administrator to
Yeah.
say you did deal those hours. Then you had to pay to go to the gaming commission to get that endorsement placed on your license.
Yes.
And those were the license. It was $100 at one point. I think it
The
was $100
affidavit.
for
You had to
everything.
get the affidavit. The affidavit
First. Yeah.
Yes.
And then
You
go
get the-
with $100 to the CCC put it down and wait a couple of months because it had
Yes.
to be approved. It had to go into a meeting by the two meetings, one at the DGE and one at the CCC, and then they will call you, you're approved, and you will go there so happy, bring your
Yeah.
old license. And you were, you would come out of there with a new license. And
That's it.
man, I tell you, the feeling when I got my first license, Lance, I mean, you, Bruce, and Lance, and mostly everybody in Atlantic City. When I got my first license and I started walking on the boardwalk, tears were coming down my eyes. I couldn't believe it. I'm
The
licensed
process
now, I
right
can
now
go to
is the
work.
same. The
Oh.
process right
No.
now is the same. No.
No. Now you don't almost need a license now.
You can go to
Yeah,
Walmart
okay.
right in the meat aisle and get
Less is like
right down the meat.
Not that easy.
no.
It took some people 2 years to get a license, and some
Wow.
others more. Yeah.
Wow.
It was very difficult because I remember my initial license took 9 months to get, and I was a 21-year-old kid who owned nothing.
Nothing.
I had nothing to my name, and it still took 9 months for me to get a license.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They went through your background and they checked everything. They were
Mhm.
they were very they were scared actually of the industry being infiltrated by the less than savory people
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
that built Nevada.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Lance, like you have started like very early being in this casino industry, in casino business, your career, and like what made you stay, in fact, like so many years, and up to becoming vice president?
Honestly, the thing that made me stay in the business was the people. I actually realized I like what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I could actually get up every day and look forward to going to work, whether or not I was a dealer or a floor supervisor or a pit boss,
Yeah.
shift, it didn't matter. I actually liked meeting people. I liked the challenges that the business presented. And then once you got to a certain level, as we discussed earlier, in order to get any higher, you had to leave New Jersey. And I think for me, that was probably the hardest decision to actually uproot myself and leave, because my parents were still on the East Coast. But once you did that, that umbilical cord had been cut, and then you had the ability to, well, if this doesn't work, I can go someplace else, because you were out on your own, and you actually had to, you had to earn it, because nothing. I don't think anything was given to anybody,
No.
and even if you knew somebody, that might get your foot in the door, but you still had to open the door and get
Do
in.
your work.
No,
Yeah.
I disagree. The juice was the flavor. Juice was the word of our industry. It was all juice, juice. Because to this day, I had never, ever, but one time, from a box person to a floor person, I have never gotten a promotion ever. After 40 years in the industry, the only way I moved up, I moved
Was by
to a
changing.
new
Leaving.
new casino that was opening and apply for another job. Because back then, it was, I mean, the places were growing, but once we had the footprint of what was going to be built, nothing else being built, it was juice. It was juice.
Oh, honestly, that was the reason I left New Jersey.
Correct. Correct.
I had gotten to that point, and for me to take that next step, it was going to be, somebody had to carry somebody out in the pine box in order for me to get that next job.
Correct.
Yeah.
I didn't wait that long. I was still young, so I was willing to make that sacrifice. So that, okay, I'm gonna go to wherever. So I started looking at jobs at that particular point. It was the riverboats, Illinois, Iowa, and in Indiana.
Did you work on any of the boats out there?
In Indiana, I did. I left New Jersey to
Well,
go
we
out.
both did actually. Yeah.
It was
Together.
at that point. It was a Trump property in Gary, Indiana.
Yeah. Actually, that's when we ran into each other again. But you were working for Trump on his vessel. I was working for Don Barton on his vessel. But we had a joint venture on the land-based pavilion.
Yes.
And so here's the thing, Casa and Miguel. We would have to. Now he's working for Trump. I'm working for
Yeah.
Don Barton. Don Barton was the only African American, only black man in the history of the world that owned a casino, single owner of a casino in the world. And that was a deciding factor for me to go, because I was going to New Zealand, and I went for a minute. But the reason why I went, because it was part of being, I said, what am I going to do? It's going to be a part of history. And Don Barton, a black man, and I'm being honest with you. I'm being totally completely transparent. Jose LeBron said, yeah, he's an African American. He got the license. Showboat was also competing for the license here, but he won the license. And I'm saying to myself, damn, am I going to work for a black guy? And I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm just telling you just the truth. I'm saying, damn, a boat? And I had never worked on a boat before. When I say boat, it's a ship, because they were building a new ship in Jacksonville, Florida. But he had
But they never moved. They never went anywhere. They
Oh
were
yes,
just parked
oh
there.
yes, we did. Oh yeah, in the beginning.
was
You guys moved?
Yeah,
Because the ones in New Orleans never moved. They were just there.
yeah. Am I going to go work as man? This guy, what's he going to be? A boat? It's going to have like it's going to be like Noah's Ark and shit. You know, it's going to be like, you know, two by two and animals on the boat. And I'm just in my mind, all this stuff went through my head, because we had been working for high end market property, Caesars, Harrah's, you know, Showboat,
Valley, yeah.
Trump. And I said, I'm going to do this. You know, I spoke to my wife at the time, and I said, I'm going to make this move. And next thing, I'm staying at the Motel 6. Lance was probably staying at the Hyatt, working for Trump. Come on. Lance.
There was no Hyatt there. No.
Where
that's,
were you staying at, Lance? Where were you staying?
At that particular point, once I came out, I found an apartment,
See?
and I
That
Ten
they
times
were
better than Motel 6.
that they were paying for, probably on the golf course.
no, I wish there was no golf. Well, there was a golf course.
Because I wound up living on one later. So
I had to think about it. That's right. You guys were up in Murrayville. I forgot about it.
yes. Yeah. Where you see? Where were you? Got an apartment?
Yeah, no, I got an apartment, and actually, of all places, I got an apartment in Hobart, and
Okay.
you know, which is the next town over from Gary.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
just trying to get a place, trying to be close to work. but
And they had
not-
the urban flight. You were probably the only black man that lived in Hobart and everything there too.
Dude, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the truth. I can remember having some conversations with some of the city councilmen, you know, because
Mhm.
back in the, you know, we would have to go to these different meetings and socialize.
Mhm.
And one of the councilmen asked me where I lived, and I said Hobart. And I'm telling you, he damn near passed out. He looked at me, his eyes popped out.
Yeah.
Hobart. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at, yeah, you know,
What's wrong?
Yeah, I didn't know any different.
Well, those are the things that, and we can speak about that openly. Those are a lot of the experiences those are the things that we did experience coming up through the industry. And to tell you the truth, it made me focus to make sure that if I'm going to do this, I'm trying to do it the right way. Because I came out of the Air Force, and then, you know, a short stint as a heavy equipment operator in the landfill, because I couldn't get an engineer's license because of, for example. So I got in the casino industry, but going there was interesting because staying in Motel 6, we would have to go to these joint meetings with the gaming commission because there was nothing there. We just had $60 million cash from Don Barton, who was from Detroit. Paul Sykes was our GM. So we had to find office space. We had to find computers. It was 5 of us. Lance and these guys for Trump, like I said, Bobby Jones.
They had everything.
And Joe DeRosa, these guys. So we would have to go to these joint meetings with the commission. So Lance and these guys will pull up in a limo. Don't lie, Miguel. I mean, don't Lance, tell the truth. They will pull up in a limousine. Me, Jose LeBron, David Luke, Paul Sykes, Tom Bonner.
Show up in a yellow cap.
We would show up. No disrespect to Paul. I love this Jeep. But we would pull up in the Jeep, piled in this Jeep in the freezing cold.
There were a couple of times that yeah, we did have a car. So we did have a car provided so that you didn't have 87 people all trying to figure out where we were going. This way, everybody went in one car and everybody arrived at the same time and nobody got late and everybody got back to the casino in time as well.
Yeah, but you tell the truth. Y'all were talking shit about us too, weren't you? You were laughing at you were like, look at those guys.
Look, I spent a lot of days with Jose and Mikey Cook, when we were sitting there in a joint venture trying to get these properties open and sharing knowledge and trying to make
That was later. That was later.
Oh, that was early on.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth, because tell the truth, Lance. You were talking stuff because our motivation was, look at these guys. Who do they think they are in this limousine? And then, I'm telling you, that was our motivation, that we were going to kick your tails. We're going to open before you. We're going to have nicer layouts, nicer carpet. We're going to have a nice expanded logo design for the chips. We were going to kick your tails.
It's interesting. When we first started, and unfortunately, and you know this, Bruce, that because Barton was on and correct me if I'm wrong, but because he had limited funds to put towards the project, the actual boat that he bought to use as a casino was a refurbished dinner cruise boat out of New York.
It was our temporary facility. We chartered it from Mississippi. We chartered it from Mississippi.
And you had to use that temporary facility.
It was a business decision, not that we had to use. It was a very good.
That's all I'm doing. I'm just saying. So that probably helped your motivation.
It was called, as Paul Sykes put in my mind, critical spending. Critical spending. Okay.
Lance, what if you can identify differences between Indiana, California, Michigan, compared to Atlantic City, where we started? What were the issues that you encountered there that you had to deal with and adjust to it?
I think the biggest thing for me, Miguel, honestly, was when I left New Jersey, because we were so set in doing things a certain way. And, if you sneezed, you got in trouble. I mean, the regulations were very rigid. Correct. That once I got to Indiana and to each jurisdiction subsequently, the rules from New Jersey did not necessarily apply there. I realized at that particular point, because I was high enough up in management, that everyone was going by the federal regulations, or the minimum internal control standards, as we refer to as the mix. Mm-hmm. And as long as you are within the mix, you can do what you have to or what you need to. Well, New Jersey interpreted the mix one way. When I went to Indiana, I realized that just because New Jersey did it that way doesn't mean that that's the way I have to do it in Indiana. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only way to do it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So learning that and figuring that out for myself the hard way, how do I get from A to C without going through B? Mm-hmm. So, and that was part of building the relationship with the Indiana Gaming Commission, actually having to go down there so you can put a face to somebody's name and, try to understand, how would you like this done? What do you need? This is what I'm trying to do. And in some cases, you had individuals or regulators who never been in the gaming industry, so they're just reading by the book. And as long as you satisfy that book, they would approve it. So I had to learn how to write things so that the commissions would be able to understand it and understand that I'm complying with the regulations, so that I didn't have to go back and forth 14 times just to get a single approval. I think for me, that was the most difficult thing. And then, once you do that, then you go to the next jurisdiction, you get to California. It's like, okay, I've done this before. This is a little bit easier. It's not as hard. And then by the time you get to Michigan, it's just like, okay, I can do this. This is not difficult at all.
Yeah. See, what happened at the beginning, since there were only 2 jurisdictions, many of the jurisdictions will follow either Nevada or follow New Jersey. Some of them, like apparently in your case in Indiana, they said, we're not going to follow either one of them. We're just going to see what works best for us. and went that way.
You know, when they wrote the regulations, Indiana, Illinois, and to some respects, if I'm not mistaken, also Iowa, I don't say copied, but had similar regulations to New Jersey. Because let's be honest, they didn't want to rewrite the book either.
Correct.
So they took the basic footprint, tweaked it to the point that it would work for them, that they felt comfortable enforcing it. And then, you know, they applied that, and it gave us the ability, because we had worked in other jurisdictions. I hate to say that we probably had a better understanding of the regulations than they did. So being able to explain to them what it was that we were trying to do and show how it was within the letter of the law, once they got comfortable, once the regulators got comfortable with what you were doing and the fact that you could go and write a submission, quote a specific regulation, quote a rule, and show how your procedure fits in there, they'd rubber stamp it.
So it was kind of also opportunity for you, right? Because
Absolutely.
those differences. So like, but the thing was, the market was over-regulated, or it wasn't so much regulated, which it causes such difficulties. Because that time, it's not clear for me.
I think I can honestly say I think New Jersey overregulated.
Okay.
I understand why they did it, because
It's for a reason too.
Yeah, they had the
Absolutely.
reasons. They had the reasons.
Okay.
But when you're doing something for 10, 15 years and you realize through operations that the operation could function better if you change this rule or if you change this regulation. It took at least 15 years for New Jersey to start to realize that, and then to start to make some modifications to regulations to allow the operators to do things that were better for everyone. So by going to Indiana, it was similar, that they wanted, their fear was that we abided by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And long as you could show that you abided by the rules, they were pretty easy to approve something for you. And if they had a question, part of our job was building that relationship so that if they had a question, they could pick up the phone and call us, so that, we could explain to them. So again, we could cut down on the denials and the resubmissions. You open up a dialogue with somebody so you can explain what it is you're trying to do. And this way it allows the process to move so much smoother.
I remember at some of those meetings we went to, those joint meetings, remember there was the commissioner, the head guy. He was eating a sandwich and laying the law down and actually saying, I know how you guys screwed it up in Atlantic City, but you're going to do it right here. Mm-hmm. Actually said that while he was eating a sandwich and saying, because we were in Gary, Indiana, but what we were doing, and I think you were also, because Gary had such a terrible reputation at the time, lovely people.
Mm-hmm.
The Jackson 5 were from there.
True.
And the first thing I wanted to see was the house that they grew up in, on Jackson Street. But
we all did.
Yeah. So the thing was that we were seeing Majestic Star. I don't think we even had a name at the time. We were Barden Industries before we named it Majestic Star, which is now Hard Rock. They just recently took it over. Mm-hmm. But we were trying to be slick about it. We, on our chips and on the advertisement, we said Buffington Harbor, because that's where we were located. And I remember going to that meeting. Remember, Lance? We went to that meeting with the commission. He says, I know what you guys are doing, and you're going to take that Buffington Harbor off of those logos, and you're going to put on billboards, Gary, Indiana. That's why you're here. That's why you were approved, and you're going to promote this city. And we did. What were we going to say? I wasn't going to say it.
It's true. Gary had a reputation, right or wrong. Mm-hmm. And, even when we would meet people, especially when, you go to functions and, both of us, both properties, we courted the Chicago market. So because we were so close to it. And when you're trying to explain to somebody where you are, they would look at you and go, you're in Gary?
Gary?
Well,
no,
technically we're in Gary. We're actually in Buffington Harbor. And
It's
if
like
you
saying
jump
you live in Camden, you know.
right,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
tell them that you just jump on the Skyway and you
Mhm.
get off at the Client Avenue exit.
Yeah.
You right into the property. You never see Gary, and then all of a
No.
sudden,
Yeah.
people were a little bit, more relaxed.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
it is
But
that
this was interesting. This was interesting that we could not advertise. And once again, I'm in my room in Motel 6. That was my office. I had a fax machine, my computer, everything was in the Motel 6 because we didn't have offices when you got there. While you had your at the Radisson, I know you had offices and things. Our office was on top of the MBD Bank building. Once we got money to actually have a office building, office.
wasn't that the Genesis Center.
No, I was going to get to the Genesis Center. That was like the center. Because I remember going to the Genesis Center and they had like a Wednesday night, step-in party and all that stuff. All the folks in the town would be there, that the club, the DJ. So I would go up. I got to meet people, and one of my duties and responsibilities was to connect with the local top minority leaders. NAACP, I'm going to say NCAA, right? The NAACP leaders, the local councilmen and so forth. So we forged relationships, and I would go to the Genesis Center and go up, and they would give me some time, and that would be like P.T. Barnum. Hi, I'm Bruce Harris. I work for Don Barton, African-American, first owner of a casino. We're going to be building a casino because the local folks have no idea. The average income per capita was $11,000 per year. Okay, that was the average income. I remember that. And so I would go up and say, hi, how you doing? I'm Bruce Harris. I'm from New Jersey here. I'm such and such. They're going to be one of the shift managers here. We're developing this property. We're going to be having a job fair at the Ivy Tech, such and such date. We'd love to have you come out. Long story short, so we did this a few times. So we had our job fair, and we couldn't do it. We weren't able to do any advertising in the Chicago Tribune or anything. We had to show the mayor that we made every effort in the local community to recruit. So it was the local paper and so forth. We did the job fair. I had set up so nicely. Had these temporary workers. Had all these banks of interview locations. Because we had just done it in New Orleans. It was massive. We did it at the Superdome. So I'm thinking it's going to be half of that at least. People didn't show up. You have to understand it's 80-90% African-American community, Gary, Indiana, probably more than that. And we learned that the mentality was, and we were saying you're going to make average $35,000 a year. We don't know what the tips are going to be, possibly $35,000 a year. And we made a really great effort into promoting the opportunity. People didn't believe it. They didn't show up. And so we held a secondary job fair because I had set it up, and the boss looked at me and said, Bruce, what's going on? What's plan B? I said, plan B? I thought they were going to be packing me up on the train back to New Jersey or back to, New Orleans. And plan B was to have a secondary plan. And that's when I learned how to do that. We did a job fair in Valparaiso, which was a suburb where they had most of the urban flight years ago. Now it's 2% African American, primarily Caucasian community, and upper middle class. We did the job fair there. There were lines around the building, 2.5 hour waits to get an interview for the jobs.
I think that, unfortunately, by the time we had gotten to Gary from an industry perspective, the steel industry had hurt that city so bad with mass exoduses over the years that the people were beat up. They didn't believe anybody was coming into town and to be able to provide anything for them. I can honestly say, though, fortunately, that through persistence on both sides, we were able to hire local people, and maybe some of them didn't come right away. They had to see, one of their neighbors go, and it's like, oh, you like it there? Okay, well, maybe I'll go. And when you start to do this, and after a couple of years, I remember one of the dealers came up to me specifically and said, "Hey, Lance, I just want to say thank you." Says, I just bought my first house. It was a small house.
Unbelievable.
Home ownership for a lot of people was a pipe dream. So for him to have a steady job and to make enough money where he could buy his own house, and then people started buying cars, and people started to realize that I can change my life and change my situation by working in the gaming industry.
That meant so much. That had such an impact on me going through the industry. And then there's people that are still there. Actually, one of my students is the director of table games there and still at Hard Rock, and that was for an example and those
Bruce,
impacts.
Yeah. Bruce, you have mentioned important topic, I think, now and before, and I would ask both of you, in fact, what are the challenges, main certain challenges for African American in this industry? You have mentioned several, but what is the most difficult there? Is kind of like a glass ceiling, kind of for women in many industries, or how does it look like?
I can only speak from my perspective that there are challenges. Unfortunately, those barriers exist even today. But, growing up, I think you have to, number one, you have to believe in yourself. And know that you're probably going to have to work harder than the next person to prove yourself. I remember in high school calling a couple of places to get it for a job interview. Okay, sure, come on in, whatever time. And I go into the place and I say, here, I'm here for a job interview. My name's Lance Allen. And you can see him look at me like that, and it's like, you didn't sound that way on the phone. And I'm like, sound like what? Oh, nothing, and they can't themselves. So unfortunately, it does exist. But I was fortunate within the industry that the people that I worked with, at least in the early years of Playboy and Atlantis, where I spent I spent the first, I guess that was 8-9 years until the place closed. People only looked at hands. They didn't. The people that I was working with, they were willing to, if you were good, they would put you, they would utilize you. They didn't care. They just wanted to make sure, as we say, you could get around the layout. One of the things that I wanted to do as I got there, back then the casinos weren't open 24 hours. They closed at night. At 4:00 during the weekday and 6:00 on the weekend.
6 o'clock on weekends.
And if a game was going on past that time, they would call last shooter. And they would always, at that particular point, as the casino is closing down, all these people would start to muster around the last couple of games that were open. So if you happen to be on that last crap game, it's 5-6 people deep, it's 10-12 people per side, and you got arms coming in. People, if you could get money on the layout, they told you to book the bet. Don't worry about it. Just book the bet. And, just move the dice as quickly as possible. So in order to be able to deal a game like that, you had to be one of the best dealers in the house. And to me, that was my goal. I'm going to work hard so that I can be one of those dealers that they call when they got a jam up game. And that's what you do. And
healthy competition.
Yeah, competition was great. It made you go home and practice. I mean, I had chips in the car. I'd be driving. I hate to say this, but I'd be driving, watching the road, but I'm cutting checks with my fingers just because
texting and driving, chipping and driving.
Chipping and driving. Yeah.
And it was
we went through all that. Yeah. We went through those things.
But my experience, as I look at it, that it wasn't. It was a matter of comfortability. It's a matter of comfortability when they talk about race or something like that. If that's how I frame it. if I'm, it's the same as if anybody listening right now is in the casino business. If you go to your EDR right now on your break or whatever, if you're listening to this or listen to this today and tomorrow you go to the EDR, look around the EDR. You'll see Asian employees sitting in the groups of Asian employees. You'll see dice dealers sitting with the dice dealers. You'll see Ethiopians sitting with Ethiopian people, culture, and they're sharing the food and everything because the chef, the cook, they're not making kimchi, Korean food or anything like that. And so it's a matter of comfortability. So when it came to the people who were in power, it was more comfortable for them to promote, give opportunities for people that they knew or they were more comfortable with. If I'm the only guy at the table, if I'm the only guy that looks like me, there's a certain amount of uncomfortability there, maybe even with women as well. But nowadays, and Lance and you guys can chime in if you're different, it's different. The organizations and corporations have smartened up over the years. Now there's like the Seminole, they have the women of Seminole Gaming. And there's people like Stacy Gallo, who's a black female. She's the vice president of table games. Well, that wouldn't have been like that 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. There's more women of other cultures, that they have the global gaming women, and that's an association. They're throughout Nevada and so forth. I actually just watched a great podcast called Max Bet. And they did a series segment on there called Appealing Diversity and Equity. No, it was called Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Great discussion. And it was basically about having the presence of mind or heightening your awareness about these are things that corporations need to do. Because first of all, most of these licenses are going into jurisdictions that are economically deprived. Right. Most of those areas are people of color. And so, and also sometimes the customers. So the smart thing to do is have your management sort of match your staff to some degree.
Customers also. Yeah.
Customers as well, to blend, there's recently, I saw also another female that just was recently named for Hard Rock in Bristol. I think her name is Ali Evangelista, I think it's called. Ali, she's the president of Hard Rock Bristol. Well, that wasn't common 5, 10, 15 years ago. Charlene Ripley, she was a former vice president in Tampa. Now she's opening a place called Sky River in California.
I guess it was not only common, it was not existing, I would say.
Jeff Elmore, he's a vice president of ARIA, as well as Ron Gordon. MGM National Harbor, and there's a few others, Gerald Williams, Theo Smith, Lance was another gentleman. That's a rarity you wouldn't see 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but now companies are getting more diverse and getting smarter, which is a great thing but you have to work and prepare yourself too. You have to prepare yourself. I had prepared myself, and
How?
Well, one thing I always told people, a gentleman I work with, and you both of you guys know, Mario Di Giuseppe, and I hope Mario is going to listen to this. Him and I got to meet each other when we worked in New Orleans, and he introduced me to a computer. And we had to, especially opening a property, we had to write curriculums.
Computer.
We had to. Well, that was in. That was in 1993.
Okay. I see.
You weren't born. You weren't even born. You understand? We had rocks, and so Mario was the only guy that had a laptop on over his shoulder. Only one in the whole bunch, right? And Mario was they were calling him over to the main office with Joe and those guys in the big Canal Street big office because they needed him to do something on the computer. And we're sitting over there waiting for Mario to come back to bring the curriculums that he had written already. I said, "Shit, Mario, let me see what you're doing." And then I was sitting next to him. I said, "Let me see that." He would hand it to me, and I'm, Word. It's called Word. Okay. And one night after we won some money with Joe on the craps table, I said, "Take me straight to the computer store, Comp USA." Got me a computer. Got me a disc called Mavis Beacon. put it in, learn Word, and my career took off once I had computer skills.
Okay.
Really, because it was
Since
unique.
you were introduced to the
It
computer.
was
Still
just a
unique.
skill that
Yeah.
you needed,
Still
to
unique.
grow in.
Once you have those skills, you can do analytics and all these other things you can apply to. That was a huge, and I'm not exaggerating, that changed my career, computer skills.
Well, it's true because the higher up the ladder you go, unfortunately, the farther you are from the casino floor, and you are in front of the computer more often. And if you don't have those skill sets to be able to, perform those functions, create those spreadsheets, then you're right. You're not going to go much farther.
Yeah, and Lance, how did you prepare yourself, for jumping on, the levels of your career? Because like you have reached the, the highest level, I would say, as a vice president. And like, how did it was a natural process for you, or did you prepare yourself? Like,
That's a great question. It's a great question.
Was it difficult, or it was like truly natural? Anybody can reach this level?
Part of me thinks yes, but for me, it was, I asked questions, from people above me. I remember when I was dealing at Playboy, I remember asking a box person, how do you track black? I mean, because the box person used to have to keep track of the
chips,
the higher value chips that each player had. How do you do that with more than one person? And if you only had one box person, that box person had to do it for the whole table. And as a dealer, I'm looking at it going, how the hell do you do that? So I kept asking questions of people that I thought knew what they were doing. So you start to ask questions. And honestly, when people saw that I was asking questions, then they would be willing to give me some more information. They would be willing to help me. So, once you get to the floor, then you start talking to the pit bosses and the shift bosses and, flat out, hey, how'd you get your job? What did you do? And to Bruce's point, in some cases it was, you had to know somebody to get that job, but that gets your foot in the door. You still have to be able to perform that job. So how do you prepare for it? What do you look for? And, you've got to be able to find somebody that you trust and basically find a mentor that's willing to share that information with you.
Is there anyone during your career that you would credit with that? Somebody that look up to you look up to, and that person helped you in your development? And who was that person? And how did you get involved with that person?
Yes, I would probably say there's three people. And the first one to me would have been my craps instructor, Ray Delfiandro. Because without him, I wouldn't have been able to, get to where I was. He was young at that point. He had worked in Nevada. He came to New Jersey. He worked at resorts. Came to Playboy. He had a passion, and he was able to instill that passion in me as a young dealer. So having that gave me a good foundation. And then the other pit bosses within could see that, and I kind of gravitated to that. And I think one of another individual would have been Joe DeRosa, who Bruce knows, and I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah,
I worked with Joe at Playboy, and again, Joe saw something in me, and the fact that I pushed myself, that I wanted to get better, and gave me opportunities. And I think that once you have those opportunities, you learn so much from an individual when you can have just a one-on-one conversation, but more in a social environment, not necessarily within the casino. When you get an opportunity, whether or not you go to dinner or not necessarily the bar, but someplace where you can sit down and just pick somebody's brain and have conversation and understand why they did something, or what they did. I remember at one point I had a shift manager and I was at the Taj Mahal. I was a pit boss, and I made a call on a game. Player didn't like my call. The player went to the shift manager. Shift manager came into the pit. I explained what happened. And I think it was $50. And shift manager said, give the gentleman his $50 back.
Give it back.
Okay, I gave him $50, and he walked out of the pit. He comes back into the pit about an hour later, and I said to him, "So Paul, can you answer me one question? Why'd you give that guy his money back?" Because I went by the book, and he looked at me, and he explained that he called that a business decision. He says, "I'm going to give this guy. He may have been wrong."
Oh, you went by the book. You mean? I thought he said you went by
I
the
went
book.
by the book.
Okay. Mhm.
He said,
Yes,
"I'm going to,"
you were right. You made the right decision.
Right. I got you.
but he made a business decision.
Business decision that we all have to make at one point or another. Yeah.
We didn't know back then, though.
Money back.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's going to stay. He's going to be happy. And I remember looking up 3 hours later, and the guy's still running around the casino, still playing. And that thought process, made an impression upon me. I'd never gotten to that point and never needed that. It was on those lower levels, it's all black and white. If you got a problem, you call the boss and let the boss handle it. Well,
Let him
now
handle it.
I was at that point where I wanted to be the boss, and I needed to understand how they thought. And I think
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I think the other person that I would have to say that I look towards was Bruce McKee. And Bruce gave me the opportunity to come to Michigan to open Firekeepers, and it was still being built at that point in time. And I had to build the team, had to put everything together. And it was interesting when you go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. There's always a little bit of intrepidation, there's always a little bit of, I don't want to say fear, but you don't know how it's going to turn out. You've got, a multi-million-dollar project that I've focused on the table games, the poker aspect of it, trying to get this property up and running. And all the other directors and VPs are doing the same thing. And, you assemble your team from your team of one to your team of several hundred, and then you're standing there a couple of weeks later on a Saturday night, and you're in the middle of the casino floor, and the place is crowded, and it's got that hum, and it's just going, and all of a sudden you realize, this came together, and that's a good feeling. It's almost like being it's almost like a proud father.
The team of one. I never heard that before, Lance.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh no, that's a good analogy. But the thing to let people know today, the young guys are up and coming in the business, is you said it. You started looking for answers. You wanted to learn. You wanted to get more involved. You seek out the people that you believe had those answers, had the knowledge, and inquire from them, what do I need to do to get good at this and keep going up? So because I've seen in the past few years, and maybe in the past 10 years, and I'm sure you've seen it, and Bruce have seen it, that the teaching is not there anymore. It has become that it's a job, you come in, you do the job, and you leave. And as you said, you make a decision, somebody overrules it, and they don't even have the courtesy of coming to you and telling you, hey, listen, you were right, you didn't do anything wrong. What I did was a business decision, and I did it. This is why I did it. You could have done it because a beef could ensue, and we're going to stop the game for 10 minutes arguing over $50. That's not a good business decision. Give them the 50, let them go, continue the game. But if more people today would do that, the young guys coming up would be prepared for the future. And that is something that we would like, that Bruce and I talk about it all the time. And it's something that we stress to people that work with us. Teaching. I will teach you, you teach the one below you, and you have him teach the one below him. And always pass your knowledge. Because if we do that, everybody's going to know how to do it.
Knowledge doesn't do anyone any good if you hold on to it. You got to. I agree 100%. The young people today should not be afraid to ask questions. I think so many people do. Unfortunately, they're scared to ask questions because they don't want to seem like, they think they're supposed to know everything. Nobody knows everything.
No.
You got to be willing to ask that question. It's the only way you're going to learn.
Well, my point of view with that is the staff is a reflection of its leadership or lack of. And in so many cases, because of lack of training, because I've had the opportunity and pleasure, or like I said, opportunity to go across different jurisdictions. Now, people who have been in one place for so long and were so comfortable where they were, now they come to a new area, new jurisdiction where I'm working, and they haven't still learned basic administrative skills, leadership skills, and those are skills. They're not just something that you're just going to know how to do. You're going to know how to handle difficult situations. Americans Disabilities Act, diversity, all of these types of things you need to know, and they're things that they are trained academics, so to speak. So what I found was there are a lot of people who are in the position who are bosses, and we spoke about this before in another episode, that they're not leaders. Joe Giaimo mentioned that. We spoke about that. I think Hina Reed as well. And with that is empowering people, empowering your staff, training your staff, getting them prepared to take your place, so to speak. Because I remember going to a job interview for a VP position. And it was a panel of other executives that were questioning me. And I thought I was the guy. I knew I was the guy, because I had the skills and so forth. But one of the questions that threw me was, we had assistant shift managers and dual rate shift managers. And the question was, Bruce, if we promoted you tomorrow, would whatever the person's name was, say, with Kasha, would she be able to step into your place or your shoes, or Ralph, whatever their name would be? And I looked and I said, no, not really. Eventually he'll get it. And one of the panelists who the person that asked me says, well, Bruce, how can we promote you? If you haven't developed him, how can I trust that you're going to develop this department? And that opened my eyes. And I'm like, wow, that made so much sense to me.
Yeah.
That once again, it's a compliment when your staff, you can look at your staff and empower your staff to work almost without touching them. They just know what to do. They know how to operate, almost a turnkey operation, and they're hitting all the right things. First of all, they have to be the persons who are motivated, which is the 20% of the bell curve. It's not the 80, it's not the 80, it's not the 70%, of that bell curve. It's the 20% of the go-getters, the one high academically, ready, motivated, ambitious, personalities, all of those things. But when you do, once you bring those people up, that 20% becomes 25%, then 30%, because they pull somebody else up. They influence someone else that's less motivated. And so my point is, your staff is a complete reflection of the management, lack of leadership, or leadership. And we have to develop more leaders.
Well said.
Vincent, over those years in the casino business, like how does it change you? Like for the better and for the bad, maybe? Like what did you learn?
Oh, Lance is a good dude. Oh my God.
He was always good.
Always a good dude.
Yeah.
Always good.
One thing I can say that it's taught me patience, which as a young man I didn't have. I think that we can all understand sometimes it's frustrating when you when you give someone a project and they don't do it properly. And then you just say, I'll do it myself.
Oh,
well, I think we've all done
it. Kind of micromanaging.
That's a skill. Yeah. That's a skill.
That defeats the purpose. So you have to learn as an individual, and I'll admit that I had to learn how to say, okay, let me give this back to you. This isn't quite what I want. Let me explain it to you again. Yeah. And then let them go back. And, maybe they've got to come back to me a couple of times. But, if I don't, I learned about myself that if I don't, to what Bruce said, if I don't teach people to do their job, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. And you couldn't be, you couldn't go higher even because you will stay at the same level. Yeah.
And allowing people to make mistakes, there's the golden rule. There's three things you do. And when they make mistakes, hopefully they admit it. they correct it and see that it doesn't happen again. So that's another thing too. You have to have the patience and being willing to let people make the mistakes, as long as, like, they're not taking keys from the pit, like Miguel said a couple of weeks ago in one of our discussions. But it's key. It is so crucial.
You've got to honestly, you've got to learn to let go. You've got to learn to trust your staff. That's why you have people in those positions to do their jobs. You have to allow them to do their jobs. If they do their jobs wrong, well, then you've got to teach them how to do their jobs properly. And for me, I won't lie, that was a struggle.
Yeah, Paul Malo is really good at that. I mentioned his name earlier, but Paul, he's really good at empowering people.
You said the key word there. You got to let them do their job. I'm not here to do your job. I'm here to facilitate you with the tools to do your job. If I'm at the top position and I hire a team of people to work with me, I have them because I believe that they can do the job. If in order for them to do the job, they have to come to me every time a decision has got to be made, then I'm not doing my job. Now you come to me when you make the decision, something happened, or you believe something blow up, then you come to me, and then we'll figure it out. I remember one of the jobs that I had in South America, the first day that I met with my boss, he told me something that I never forget. I will never forget this, and I use it when I hire somebody. I tell them, listen, you're here because I believe that you're the right person for the job. But I'm just going to tell you one thing. If something happens and you let me know, immediately becomes our problem, and we will solve it together. If you don't let me know, then it becomes your problem. Then you figure out how you get out of it, if you ever can. Don't come to me after the fact, like once the thing blew up in a way that even I can't fix it.
What was the other one, Miguel, about the needs of the many and the many of the few, something like that? What was that?
Well, it's something that
I wrote it down somewhere.
I always say this when I get to a new position, because everywhere I've been, one of the first things that I get hit with is favoritism. And here, this guy takes care of his friends, and she takes care of her friends, and this. And I say, okay, all that is done from this point on, all that is done. From now on, the needs of the many are going to outweigh the needs of the few. What that means to me is that I have to be ready to make a decision. The decision I'm going to make in here is going to be the one that is better for the collective, not for a small minor group. Because in many places, in most of the places, there's always a little group of this and a little group of that. When I was there was one property in Atlantic City, one of the first properties that I worked, there was every shift manager had a little group of people. And that's the way it was. I mean, some shift managers, the first time I was put in the high limit pit, a shift manager came to me and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I don't know. They sent me here." And the guys grabbed the phone right away and started calling. And
who's this guy?
Yeah, why is he here? He shouldn't be here. Well, they sent me here. They were the only
reason. How did that make you feel, Miguel? How did that make you feel?
It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me a bit because I knew that the reason that I was there is
I'm gonna tell you something.
They knew I could do the job. Another shift manager sent me there.
It depended on what day it was. Either I was angry, depending on what day it was, or no, I said depending on what day it was, what day of the week, I would have been so hurt. It would have hurt me.
No, not me, because I was getting paid the same to be in the lower limit pit that I would get paid there. Now, what happened was apparently somebody got sick or something happened in the high limit pit. I was on the next to the high limit pit.
Yeah, but see the reason
outside on the floor,
Miguel,
they go there, listen to this. They go there and said, send a good dealer to the high limit pit, and the pit boss sent me.
What
So
you're
that
missing,
right there in
Miguel,
itself, what right there in
Lance.
itself says, I am the best guy for the job. So when
Mhm.
they told me, what are you doing here? It says, hey, they send me here. Now you don't want me here.
Mhm.
For me, it's simple. You get somebody else, and I'll go back to where I was. I was happy there. I got no
Mhm.
problem with that. I
Lance,
got no problem
tell
with
them, listen, and I know you aren't, you look different than them, but you don't look that much different than them. But when you look like me, and so
that. Well, you're ugly. You're
Not
uglier
just-
than Lance. I mean, and me. So that in itself,
well, that too.
puts you at a
uh,
different
but-
level there.
But I'm pretty now, though. I was an ugly duckling. I blossomed late.
Your
I am-
hair shines more now than it
No,
did.
but
20
I'm
years ago.
pretty now. But back then, that happened to me, and that's one of those situations, almost like you're asking Casa before, when you look like me, not only on the table, in the pit, but in the whole joint, in the whole city,
Yeah.
and that happens. That hurts. That hurts. That hurt. That hurt.
I understand your point. I understand
That
your
hurt.
point. I, you know, like to me, it made no difference. If he told me,
Mhm.
hey, had he told me, go back to where you were, I would have gone there happy as
Mhm.
hell.
Mhm.
But what he didn't know was, and I didn't know at the time, that the casino manager is the one that told the pit boss
Mhm.
to send me there.
Well, when I got off, when they tapped me
Mhm.
on the shoulder when I was breaking in as a crap dealer, I was like thankful. I was so
Yeah.
buried. I'm like, please get this
Yeah.
out of here.
So
You
so
know?
I ended up staying there. And from that day on, that was my place. From
Mhm.
that day on. I
Lance,
was
you know what I'm
never out of
talking
there
about, though.
until I left the place to go to another place. So, you know, but I understand your point, Bruce. And
Because I know that when we opened Playboy. One of the things that we did was they had bunny dealers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
Bruce, you guys remember them?
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had female crap dealers,
Mm-hmm.
and that at that point in time was very rare.
yes,
Most women, I hate to say this, Cassia,
They weren't?
but most
Mhm.
allowed in the crap pit.
Nope.
yeah.
They weren't allowed.
They weren't
No,
It was
they
a
weren't
boy.
allowed there.
Nope.
And I tell you,
It's a shame.
Lance, I went to Playboy when it opened.
Had the best
with a friend
hands.
of mine. We were both working at the Golden Nugget.
Best hands.
And
Mhm.
I know I was working at the Golden Nugget and he was waiting for his license.
Mhm,
And because at the Nugget, we had female dealers. We didn't have a lot, but there were some.
mhm.
But at Playboy, there were more. And I went with him to show him, I showed him around town and I took him to Playboy. And all of a sudden he tells me, oh, look, there's women dealing dice. I said, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, he was
Wow.
shocked.
We
Yeah.
had
Because he
a
was
we had a
coming from
shift
here,
manager
Dominican
at the
Republic.
Claridge. Supposedly, she was the first female dice dealer in Vegas. That was the story. That was, that what was said. But you know what? That to me, those times when those kind of situations happen, it didn't reflect everybody. I looked
No.
at who made that decision. It was them,
Mhm.
their narrowness in their mind. I didn't. It didn't cause me to have an attitude against everybody. Listen,
Oh, no.
because that was such a small percentage, really. I think. But when they made contact with you or interacted, and those type of tendencies came out, it hurt. It really hurt.
Mhm.
No, it hurt, and I know that I remember overhearing a conversation with one of the pit managers, looking at a couple of women and square in the face. Now, this was before Playboy opened. And said, "My job is to break you,
Wow.
because if you're going to be here, you're going to be the best." And I've watched some of these girls actually crack. Go to the
Oh,
bathroom.
yeah. Cry.
Cry.
Mhm.
Come back into the pit, and they'd be pissed. It's like, put me back on that game.
That was me. I remember. I couldn't-
And you were
I-
a girl. And
I
you were a
remember-
girl.
They caught me a girl, but man, shit, I don't care. I remember I used to talk to everybody and everything, but when I got to the dice pit after I came out of school, and my first time in there, hey, give me that game, whatever. And I think I told that story before, but I remember going up to the break room, and people were saying, "Hey, Bruce, how's it going?" And I was sitting by myself, my lip was clear. I'm all right. I'm all right. And I had tears. I had tears in my eyes. Just I'm trying not to try and move my eyes so that nobody would see it. And shit,
It's so
amazing.
easy today for them because they go to school and some other places, we train them and you just put them in the games and then, they learn as they go along. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. You know, Bruce had went through rough times. Many of us went through rough times. I had the ability to, I was already, when I got to Atlantic City, I had been in the business many years before I got there. So I had gaming experience.
Yeah, but in Vegas, you have to deal down on the strip. You have to work on, downtown.
You have to go downtown.
You have to work downtown. And once you got good enough.
10 cents dice games in downtown before you could go and get a job at the strip.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or a new place was opening up. That was the move.
Yeah.
That was the move.
Yeah. Yep.
Lance, now that you're retired, what do you miss about the business, or it's too early just yet? 2 months now.
I'm going to say it's probably too early, but honestly, I think the thing that I miss most, it's the people. I've been asked that question before, and it was interesting because, what did I like the most about the business? The people. And what did I like the least about the people? It's hard for people who are outside the industry to understand that. But when you work with people for a long time, you build a camaraderie, you build a team. You spend time with them, and you miss them, even if it's just seeing them. So from that aspect, I think it's definitely the people that I miss. You build a bond with, you hire these people, you bring them in, you work closely with them, you laugh, you cry. But, I think that's what this business is all about, is people.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's why we're still friends all these years later.
Man, we're so connected. We're so connected. I think the last time we hung out was at G2E. You, myself, Miguel, Antonio. I think Antonio was hanging out with us.
Antonio was with us, yes.
It was.
Theo and a couple other guys, Brian Hairston, I think, caught up with us and stuff,
I would say, Bruce, that and Lance, Kasha, that one of the businesses where you develop the most relationships and carry them for the longest time is the gaming industry, because you work in different locations, different jurisdictions, different states, different countries, but you always remember the people that you work with. I remember people that I worked with 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And it comes to mind, like 2 days ago, we were talking and we were talking about something, and Reggie came to mind. I said, Reggie would do this and Reggie would say that. Reggie is somebody who recently passed away a couple of years ago, and is somebody that Bruce and I knew very closely. And there are so many people that some of them are still with us, and most of them are gone, that you cherish the times and the things that you learn from them, number one, because I learned from all of them, and you cherish conversations that you had with them. You remember things that they do, things that when they were at a higher position, you were watching them. What is he going to do? How is he going to solve this problem? There is a beef there, and he's there. Let me see what he's doing so I can learn what to do. And from one of those guys, from Hank McCullough and from Reggie, both of them told me this. I learned one thing that I always carry with me. Says, because when I was a young, hot, an energetic pit boss. I was one of the youngest pit bosses.
Miguel, you were hot. You were hot before.
I was always hot. I'm still hot. I'm still hot.
He's still.
I believe that I was always right. Number one, and if there was a beef, I was going to be the winner. And they told me, Miguel, you don't have to win every beef. You don't. So sometimes losing, you're winning. And I said, how is that? He says, well, when you deny the guy the $10 because you're right, and we come in and we give him the $10, who won? And I told him he won because he got the $10. And he said, no, we won. You know why we won? Because the game kept going. We're making money. We don't make money when the game is stopped. We don't make money. That's one thing that everybody's got to keep clear. If the dice are not rolling, the cards are not coming out, and the ball is not spinning, we're not making money. For us to make money, all those things have to be in motion every single minute of every day. And once you learn that, you will make always the right decision. You're always going to make the right decision. Every decision will be right, because if it is a big customer, I have given customers $50,000 back on a call, on one call. And the supervisors and everybody was crazy. Wow, $50,000 is, but the guy's losing 3 million at this point.
Mhm.
What would happen if I deny that $50,000 to him? He's going to get pissed. He's going to stop playing. He's going to leave. And we had the opportunity to take another 2 or 3 million from him because he's got it available. Some of the people will look at it a different way. Let's create a beef now that we got him in losing $2 million. So he'll get pissed and leave. So we make the $2 million. Yeah, but then you got a problem. It's going to cost you a lot of money to bring him back. You know,
Right.
the right decision is always the decision that keeps the customer in play and keeps us making money for the house. That's the right decision. There is no other decision.
Absolutely.
Lance, I want to say also, in your job as the vice president of table games, was that in Firekeepers in Battle Creek? Was that job, was it stressful for you, or how did you manage it after all of the years that when you first got in there as a vice president?
Was it stressful? In the beginning, it was. I mean, because you're still, you bring everybody together. You get open.
Oh, you opened the property. You opened it.
Oh, I opened the property. I came on board
At the same position, you were VP of operations when you opened it?
when I came on board. I was director of table games. Reported directly to the general manager, and I guess it was about 2 or 3 years in, I had the promotion to VP. And you come in, you build the team, you get everything set, and then you open. And now you're in a day-to-day operation. And now now what you thought you had may not work as well as you thought it really
Adjustments. I think I had that
Adjustments are
conversation with
coming now.
one of my team members here. But
Yes, I mean, you're going to adjust. People are not going to stay. They're not going to be a fit. You're going to have to let people go. You're going to promote people, and that took a couple of years for that to settle out. But once we got that core group of people who were the right ones.
I want to say amen so bad.
You're on cruise control. You're on cruise control almost at that point. Once you got your team, they know you, they know what they're doing, and they know how you like things done.
You have to adjust your procedures.
Yeah.
Move the
rest is
cage.
easy. The rest is easy.
It was a learning process all the way around. Even for myself, I had to make adjustments. I used to laugh at with my director because in the early years, it would be, they'd come to me with a question or whatever, and I go, no, this is the way it is. Then over the years, I learned that, let me think about this before I give them an answer. And a lot of times when I thought about it, it would not have been the same answer that I had given if I had given them that answer on the spot. And I used to joke with them and say, see, yes, even I can change my mind. So if I can change my mind, anybody can.
Key principle number 3.
That is something that
Sorry, Cosmo.
Bruce and I always allow to our people. As I say, I might be wrong, but if you come to me and you give me the right approach into everything, you can change my mind. If you change my mind or if you prove to me that I'm wrong, I'm going to accept it and we're going to go with it. It's the same when somebody comes to you and says, I'd like to try this. Let them try it. I want to try a new game. I want to try a different approach. Instead of, let's say, instead of opening pit 5 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, let's open pit 2 because it's closer to the door. Go ahead, try it. I mean, it's no big deal. Let's try everything. If it doesn't work, we'll readjust. We'll adjust again.
I laugh because when the layout of the casino floor, just from the table games perspective, the game mix in the pits now is nowhere near what it was when we first.
What it was before. No.
To your point, you learn. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we're so used to having all the crap games in one pit, but maybe you don't open them all at the same time. So maybe I need 1 or 2 over here, and then another one over here because I'm going to open that pit a little bit later. So again, to your point, it's all adjustment. It's learning and on the fly.
But we had here, Bruce, on the Hard Rock here, we had one pit that we had every game in that pit because for logistic purposes, when we opened the casino, we, instead of having 2 tables here and 2 tables over there and 3 on the other side, we had everything that we needed. We had a mini casino in one pit. That gave us the use of only one pit boss who could be relieved by another pit boss that was relieved.
The dynamics were totally different, though, Miguel.
Completely different.
No, the dynamics is understand what you don't understand, though, Lance, is in this whole country, there's no such thing as an hourly employee or a part-time employee, which changes the whole way you operate. Everyone's on a salary. So if they work 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5, they're going to get paid the same. So there's staggered shifts and all those things. It's a whole different methodology. So, Casa, I'm sorry. I think I cut you off there. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, I was about to ask you, like, what was the most difficult moment in your career?
Today.
Today. Well, he said he's, now he's more busy than before.
Well, today we had technical difficulties today.
Yeah.
I think there were two things come to mind that probably gave me the most apprehension in all the years that I was in the business. One, I was in Indiana and it was a player with a beef. And this was a gentleman who was just irate and just wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I was a shift manager at that point in time when we first opened. And they called me and I had to come down and I found out what was going on and went to talk to the guests. And this person was bigger than me. And he got into my face and he was just
he was ready to rumble.
And I stand there and I had my hands down in front of me held together and I just looked at him and I just spoke very calmly and very quietly and said, I'm here to discuss this situation with you. And if you're not going to lower your voice and hold a civil conversation, we're not going to have this conversation. And he just kept going and going. I told him, I said, I'm not going to argue with you. I'd like to discuss this situation. He was not going to have a discussion. And I told him at this particular point, this conversation is over. I turned around.
He was your manager, right? He was your
customer.
manager. Customer. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I turned around and walked away from him because he did not want to have a conversation. And ended up calling security, and unfortunately, it didn't end up well for the gentleman. But I had the pit boss was said to me, "How did you hold your composure with this guy? He was damn near in your face. You have to." And I guess to steal a phrase from a commercial, you never let them see you sweat. No matter what's going on, you have to hold your composure, and you've got to be able to present yourself as the neutral, even party, which it's not always easy, but it's part of the job, and that's what you have to do.
But the key thing he said also, Casa, I don't know if you caught this. He said he had his hands folded in front of him, and he listened and so forth. Well, it's better to have your hands in front of you than you have your hands folded behind you, because if he swings, you want to be able to put your hands up. I learned that early also. So that's a key to make it a habit. Always have your hands folded in front of you.
Always you got to figure out where you're going to hit him.
Yeah.
If the move goes, where are you going to hit?
Yeah.
You never put yourself in a bad position. You always got to think.
Yeah. Where are you going to hit him? That only one hit will count.
I was thinking, I know we're going to have to wrap this up soon, but I was thinking when you said about making a decision, when someone came to you and they asked for your advice and you would give them a remedy or solution to whatever their issue was. But that was something that I also had to learn. And that's a skill that I learned in New Orleans. We went through this, what they call PPE, People's Place to Excellence was the acronym PPE. And it had a lot of different phases, but the main portion of it was they had the key principles. And when we first went to this class, Mario and all of us guys, they had these human resources people from the Marriott or their company was Promos and Embassy Suites. But they had never been in the casino industry, and they were training us. And we were in this room, about 12 or 15 of us. And the girl, I remember her name was Jennifer Wolf, I think her name. She was a pretty little petite young lady. Just, she just carnation milk she drinks every day, something like that. And she was just the total opposite of, we came from Jersey, dealing with the scumbags and, those type of mentality customers and so forth, dealing with Milt Hexner. He wasn't a scumbag. He was Milt Hexner. He was like, we call him the Skull. Remember?
Skull,
so we dealt with that kind of mentality. The customers were rough. So we were rough. So we were still rough there.
It had to be.
And she's teaching us, she's going to teach us these key principles. And we're like, and they would have all of these different toys sitting in front of us. That was their style of training. We had Nerf balls, Slinkies. We had little Tootsie Rolls and stuff. We had all these little nice things, little different color pens and markers to draw with, like we were in Romper Room, the kindergarten. This was the interactive training for the facilitator. And so when she turned around to draw on the board, we would throw the Slinkies and shit at her, and like, yeah, that shit, we don't mind. Teaching the key principles and stuff. Okay, when a customer comes to you and they're choking you around the neck, maintain and enhance their self-esteem, listen with empathy, ask for help in solving the problem, check for understanding. And I remember these things. And we would laugh at this stuff. We said, get the hell out of here. Guess what? The shit worked. Once we understood it and learned it, we didn't just use it in the casino. We used it with the bill collectors. We used it at the grocery store. And I would tell people,
in life.
It's in life. It was such a skill, and I'm not exaggerating when I said how we reacted. Some of us, the South Philly guys, they were, yeah, get the, yeah, I got your key principles right here, and that's just how it was. And we were very informal. We didn't have that, that polish, but we became polished, and we were mixed. We had a mixture, which is good. It's a blend, so you knew how to be polished and formal when you needed to be. And at the same time, you knew how to be gangster when you needed to be gangster in our world, but those are key principles. Maintain and enhance self-esteem, and asking for help in solving the problem. How would you like for us to handle this? And that's half the battle. They can tell you what they want. Maybe you won't give them 100% of it, maybe 60, 70% of what they're saying. So those are the valuable things that I learned.
They come to a medium point to solve the situation.
Valuable skills that I learned moving up with the employees, the staff, team members as well.
And sometimes, the person just wants to be heard. They may not want anything done.
They just want to be listened to. And somebody listen to me. I don't want anything. I just want to vent myself.
Express.
And it works. It works.
Yes.
Perfect.
This is great. It's great. Lance, how do you feel today, man? How was this, man, hanging out with us? Because I know I'm not.
Hanging out with you guys has been great. The only difference is next time we have to do a poolside with a beer.
Absolutely.
You want us to come to Michigan, or you want to come to Punta Cana?
No. So if you're gonna do it, we're gonna by the beach.
We will go to Punta
Cana.
Cana.
We may have to. It's warm. It may take a couple of months for it to warm up here in Michigan.
Yeah. Here is always warm.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It was in the 80s today. Yesterday was in the 90s. So it works. It works. Right now it's 82 degrees.
Miguel, we said that last podcast and the one before that. People are going to get tired of us. They don't want to hear that. It's terrible.
We got it. When you got it, you got it.
It's terrible. No, it's terrible today. We won't mention it.
No, and I believe it. That's the story.
Snowing outside. We got to tell them snow. We got 2 feet out there.
Yeah, those guys are real. They're cool. They'll hate our guts. But no
Lance,
shame.
We need to book our tickets, to Punta Cana.
I agree with you, Kyle.
Yes. No shameless plug or anything, Lance, but our podcast is here for our mantra, and our goal and commitment is being authentic, entertaining, educating, and honest. And that was, you made it easy for us to do that today.
Oh, yes.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And, without having a script, that was, it's easy to do that with the three of you as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We want to keep it as real as possible. It's real hard when you don't know the person, and then you don't know how to react to something that they said or how you're going to approach a question for them. When it's people within the same industry and people that we had a relationship in the past, and we haven't seen each other for a while. We don't have any type of agenda. We don't sell anything. We're not looking to sell anything to anybody. We just want to bring our experiences and the people that we know and the people in the industry who have been in the gaming business for a long time, share those experiences with us so our audience can also enjoy and learn from it.
Hopefully, I think that you just hit the nail on the head, Miguel. Hopefully that people can learn from our journeys, both good and bad. And, hopefully we can lay the foundation for the next generation of casino executives.
That is the goal. That is our goal.
Definitely. Like I've learned today a lot, Lance, from you, and like it was a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you. It was an honor.
I appreciate that. It was very nice talking with you as well. Next time we're going to do it in person.
Absolutely.
Yes,
man.
yes.
Absolutely.
Please.
In Punta Cana.
Please,
Thank
let's
you.
do that.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Lance. We got through. It was rough at the beginning, but eventually we got through it. And we got the sound.
That's like
we got
Tina
everything that
Turner.
we need.
I don't like
Yes.
it easy. I don't like it easy.
Yeah.
I like
We're gonna
it
make
rough.
it rough.
I
We're
like
gonna
it
make
tough.
it rough.
You know who Tina Turner is, Kasha?
No, yes, I know, but I haven't heard it.
Tina Turner.
Oh, she
Sing-
says. on the
What's one of
song
her
Proud
songs,
Mary.
Kasha?
Proud Mary.
No, wait, Miguel, hold on. I like it rough. Lance,
First,
man.
do it nice and easy. Nice
There
and
goes Miguel.
easy. But then we're gonna do it rough.
You guys are nuts, man. I'm so glad I'm the only serious person on this show.
I'll give you
was-
some of Ike and Tina Turner's greatest hits.
Miguel,
Miguel, behave.
Lance, I'm going to tell you. Last week we gave Kasha flowers because it was National Women's History Month.
Yes.
Miguel says, "Oh yeah, it's for all the women. It's the women's month. The women's month." or
The
something.
women's month.
It didn't come off right. Now we talked about inclusion and diversity, equality. He's talking about hiking here, smack. Miguel,
Greatest hits.
Miguel. I'm cutting that shit out. I'm cutting it.
Oh no, I know you will. That's
I'm
why
gonna cut
Yeah.
I know you're gonna cut it.
Cut it out.
It's all part of the diversity and the lessons being learned.
Absolutely.
Cutting that shit out, man. I'm just telling you.
Diverse hits.
It's gonna be edited. It's being edited.
But no, we had a great time with you, Lance, today. And as you said, we got to do it more often, and we got to do it in person. So
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you all for
It's our pleasure.
bearing
It's our
with
pleasure.
me.
Thank
Make
you.
it through technical difficulties.
no.
but I'm getting it
We
complete.
weren't going to let this go by without having you on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Great seeing you, my friend.
Good seeing you.
Best to you and your retirement, and enjoy life. Now is the time.
Thank you. That's the goal.
Bruce, what?
And we lost Bruce's sound now.
I don't know, like what Bruce is doing, but
Bruce is going
He's
already.
got-
write
he's got
it
cue
down.
cards.
Write
He doesn't
it
have
down.
cue cards like you. He doesn't have cue cards anymore.
I don't know. You may have to remember how to do that in the future.
Yes.
We got to be ready for that. Yeah.
Lance, my
Lance,
friend.
Thank
Sounds good,
you.
brother.
Thanks so much, man. I love you,
Good
man.
luck always, man. Good luck
Love you guys.
always.
So take care.
Okay,
Take
give
care,
the
man.
missus I say hello.
Take care.
Yes.
We will.
It was
Good
nice having
content.
him.
Yeah.
Good
I would
content.
say, it was a kind of personal episode. Personally,
Yeah.
like he was, right?
Yep.
Well, we
Yeah.
went to some areas that we hadn't gone into before, and it's
Mhm.
necessary. We have
Exactly.
to be
Of
transparent.
course. Of course.
Yes.
We did commit to be open, honest, and I can't sugarcoat coat stuff. I'm not really good at that. And there's some things that are interesting and for us to share that people don't know from all of our sides and our perspectives, you know? So it's very important. To me, it is. I don't have to worry about any retribution going to work and human resources. Oh, he said
No,
something
no.
on on the podcast that offended somebody. I didn't say
Thankfully,
anything offensive.
we're out. We're doing our own thing now, and we don't owe explanations to anybody as long as we're true to
We're
ourselves
respectfully.
and respectful, truth to ourselves.
There's so many people that I work with that I love and I miss. And I'm going to say that's about 99 point that guy's percent, 99.99%.
There's a minor percentage. There is always a minor percentage.
No,
that,
I mean, I work with some
they brought it
great-
on their own. It's not because of you. It's because
No,
of them.
99.999%. I was respectful, equally, mutually. They were respectful to me. We enjoyed working with each other.
Mhm.
Not everybody. You're not going to make everyone
It's
happy,
normal,
especially in your
True.
position. But great relationships, a lot of respect. Respect in me coming up through the ranks, in my position and my experiences with people, whatever the social issues were. I didn't have those directly that I can recall. There were some times, but I forget, and I didn't carry that banner every day. I didn't know I was any different from anybody else until somebody took a picture of me in a group, and I says, "Oh, wow, oh, okay, I look a little different." It was in the back of my mind, I would say that because every day I'm the same. We're all the same.
Yeah, we're all people. We're human beings. So I don't consider myself more than anybody else, but
No,
I'm not
that's
lesser.
my point. Is I'm saying that actually happened. We were in a group, and then I looked in the past, and I'm like, damn, I never even thought. You don't think like that. Plus, I hadn't seen. Plus, I wasn't in any pictures. It was the first picture in years. You know what I mean? Nobody took pictures with
I
me.
try to stay away from pictures myself. That way, there are no proof. There is no proof that I was even there. Because you never know.
Casa, what do you think?
Yeah, it was
What do you
about-
think? What are you learning?
I was on the go, like when it's our 7th episode, and I have the impression when I'm listening to you and the guests, like that the casino business, like because I've never it's my first experience, in fact, about the casino industry, and like my impression is that like you work hard, like the people from the industry work very hard. There are like very difficult situations there, but at the same time you can develop such close relations like with people, like kind of a family. And like, to be honest, I work with different businesses, but I didn't experience this level of relations, relations between people like in the casino business, based on like what I've heard so far from you. That's very interesting for me.
You see, the gaming industry and the casino business, we spend so much time with each other, and many of us, when you open a new place, there is like a mystique about it. I would say, Bruce, that when you're opening a new place and you started new people that you never met before, and sometimes you train together for up to 90 days. Some places we train at least 60 days of training, and you become friends with people little by little. After the training, you go out at night, you have a beer together, relationships start bumping into each other and things like that, and you develop a level of friendship with certain people that it doesn't happen anywhere else. I haven't seen it anywhere else. I haven't been in too many businesses, but I can walk into a business and I can tell you it doesn't happen here. What happens in the gaming industry, it doesn't happen here.
I always felt, because I was in two businesses, that I said, if you have a military background or a entertainment background, this is the place for you, the industry for you, because all those things. In the military, you're so close because you have to watch each other's back.
Yes.
Musicians in entertainment, the same way. You practice,
same way.
you do the gig. Athletics as well, athletes, team sports. So that's my
I
opinion.
happened to be in two of those, of those that you mentioned. I was an athlete for many years, and the
You learned
camaraderie
how to
there,
achieve.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same. I mean, we lived together. I lived in the Olympic Village for a year and a half here before we went to the 74 games.
Yeah, that's
So-
why you're That's why he's so hot, Casa.
Always.
That's why
Always,
Miguel's so, that's why he's hot.
Always.
So listen, we're gonna say that's a close to episode number 7.
7.
It was a great start of a day. It started off a little bumpy, as we said, but I enjoyed Lance, and he really nice contribution. And I hope that the folks that are listening enjoy it as well, and they get a chance to contact us. And Miguel, you always let people know where to contact us. But
Yes. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. You got. We've been getting mail. We're actually getting some mail from the people that listen and watch the podcast. So if you would like us to answer a question for you, or something that you're not too sure about, if we don't know, we will look for the right answer and give it to you. Just drop us a line at info@chexplay.com, and we'll be more than happy to get the answers that you're seeking. We're glad that you're listening to us always, and we're here to make the gaming industry a little better for you.
Exactly, and we are available for you on different platforms where you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcast, YouTube also. So just listen to us, share with your friends, and enjoy with us.
okay, all right. Don't break any balls.
Great.
See you later.
That's a wrap.
Thanks a
Take
lot.
care.
It's a wrap.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Lance Allen, former Vice President of Table Game Operations at Firekeepers Casino Hotel, was guest of our 7th episode at the Chex Play podcast. We want to thank Lance for sharing his experience and knowledge with us. It was very special, true, and personal episode. Thank you very much, Lance. Please help us spread information about our great show, and hit the like button, comment, and share with your friends so more people can listen to us. We are available for you on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.